Welcome to the Unraveling Shaltazar podcast. Hello, Jeffrey. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Mark. I'm doing well and excited for 2021. So, new year, new beginnings.
New beginnings. I hope so. I think that's what everybody's looking forward to, is a new start and a sunnier future.
Yeah. And I understand that the message we're going to be talking about is about that future, and I'm looking forward to your questions and hopefully our discussion on how we can maybe help the listeners get a bit of a handle on 2021 and how we can make it the best year possible for as many people as we can.
Absolutely, that would be great. That would be a great outcome of this. The message that I chose is called "You Are the Creators of Your Future World," and it's an interesting message because it kind of hits on sort of two things that I find interesting, conceptually at least, and one of them is the idea that our approach to life, or our reactions to life, to the circumstances that come to us in life, are what create the future events that come into our life. And we've talked about that before, that we're all creating on that level where our reactions and the ways that we react to what comes to us determines what comes next. Right? And that's one of the things that I find very interesting, that I'd like to kind of get your take on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, let's start there, because this message kind of drives it home in a very interesting way. And I'm never sure when I channel these messages, but they seem to always be timely, even if they were channeled a few years ago. And it's like, wow, that's kind of interesting that they were talking about these challenging times, because I'm really not sure when I channeled it if the times were as difficult as they are now. We've talked about this before, the distinction between a reaction and a response, and Shaltazar is making it really, really clear. There's a real wake-up call that we need to be conscious about our response, because our response is what is creating the future. And that, is, I always like to say, it's kind of like a two-edged sword. On one hand, it really is empowering, because now we are the creators of our future world. This is like, wow, this is amazing, right? But on that other edge of the sword is the fact we can't blame anyone if we don't get what we want. And
Right.
It's like, I'm not sure I want to own all of this myself, right? Mm-hmm. It's sort of like, it's got to be the government, it's got to be someone else. But I will tell you, over the years, I've really been working on it, and that sense of personal responsibility without blame. The key is not to blame yourself when things don't work out, but to look at it through the lenses of learning and growth. And I have really come to realize that I am the creator of my future world. And I'm seeing things, I'm seeing more miracles in my life now than I ever had before, because I'm really quite conscious of the energy behind what I'm creating. Right.
Yeah, I've put that to test in my life many times, where, and I'm sure this happens to everybody, where once you feel that negative energy rising up and that frustration or that anger, what happens next is never good. You drop something and you break it and you get mad about it, and your reaction is to lash out, and you kick it, and then you end up hurting your foot, or you end up breaking something else. It seems like that whatever energy you respond with snowballs into either something positive and good and beneficial, or something negative, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, and as you're talking, that brings to mind one of my favorite, more recent messages from Shaltazar, Minding the Mind, where they teach us to become more aware so we can respond in a more conscious way. And I think that's so critical as we enter 2021, because I'm led to believe from Shaltazar that this is the year of change. And although they've been talking about us being in the energy of change where no change is not an option, I am getting a sense that it's all going to come together in 2021. And all of the things that happened in 2020 were just to destroy the status quo so that we could begin this change process. And so, when I listened to that message that you chose, it was like, wow, Mark's really amazing, because this is a phenomenal wake-up call for, the first week of January, to be so cautious of how we are creating our future world. And Shaltazar said it in such a way that it made total sense. And we, I think as a humanity, are going to have some challenges because of the divisiveness, the destruction, the anger, the frustration of 2020. If we don't pull up our socks, if we don't shift that energy, then I think we're going to get more of 2020 in 2021.
Yeah, that seems to be highlighted in this message. I was just looking. There's a spot in here. The Shaltazar says, so many of you remain asleep, unconscious, on autopilot, and are not even aware of how you respond to what comes your way. You're so busy doing and thinking and planning that you don't pay attention to your responses to what is happening all around you. Slow down and become more aware of what you say, what you do, and what you think when something happens to you or to others in your world. And that kind of goes right along with what you said about COVID kind of pulling the rug out and shaking things up. It's kind of, if you were on autopilot and you have any inclination to not be on autopilot, COVID is certainly an opportunity to get off autopilot and start becoming more conscious, and hopefully that more people became more conscious and aware than didn't. I guess, right?
Yeah, that's our hope.
Yeah, right.
And so I guess, what would your advice be to the listeners about how to become more conscious? It's kind of interesting. I talk to a lot of people whose lives have shifted, and it's such a gradual unfolding that when we try to explain it to someone else, it's a bit difficult. Like there is no process manual for how to become conscious. I know you've started to see some miracles in your life. We talked about this. Members of your family got COVID. You didn't get it. It's like, wow, that's amazing. How did you do it, Mark? And of course, you would probably be able to say, I'm really not sure. But maybe we want to have a little bit of conversation on how we can become more conscious of the energy of our response.
Well, so that's actually a really interesting question. I would say that the way I do it is I used to have to really work at this, and I don't have to work at it as hard anymore. But when you say responding without judgment to the things that come into your life, I've found that when I try to put something in a bucket or try to put a label on something, this is good or this is bad, this is positive, this is negative, and not do that, just let it come and just go, okay, well, this is what happened, and sort of just accept and live with that thing that happened, rather than trying to interject my take on it or to color it through my vision or through my lens. It seems to bring a kind of a peaceful and calm response to whatever that thing is. If that
I
makes
love
sense.
it. Brilliant. Oh, 100%. Makes so much sense. Makes so much sense that it is that judgment that probably puts us back into more of reaction mode. One of my coaches used to phrase it, automatic way of reacting, right? There's this automatic that we have. And I think the trigger, you're right, is judgment. One example I'll give is that, we're in the winter in the Northern Hemisphere, and you get those cloudy gray days. I was looking out today saying, wow, it kind of feels kind of cloudy and gray, but it's only January. What's going to happen in February? Because February up here tends to be that real gray month. It's like, oh, I better get used to a couple more months of this. So you can easily get a little bit tired or weary. And I watch my wife, in the middle of the day, she'll get very angry at herself for being tired and think that there's something wrong. And that's what you're talking about. There's that judgment that being tired is a bad thing. Now, maybe if you have to work and you're in a job like an air traffic controller, that yes, that might be a little dangerous. But most of us don't need to be so severe with that judgment. I mean, take a break, go to the washroom, do a 5-minute meditation, do anything to shift it. But Shaltazar often says that if we resist it, it will persist. It's probably not Shaltazar that said that one. That saying's been around for a long time. So that the resistance of that which we judge as bad is causing a future that we may not want to bring. And that's what this message is saying, is be careful, because that judgment of it being bad probably leaves you lingering in it and not giving you enough energy to catapult out of it. And therefore you're stuck in that lower vibration because you've judged it as bad. And so, if judgment was an inspiration, if saying something is bad inspires you to change it, then maybe, judgment would have more of a place. But I think the judgment, especially judgment of something that is bad, right? Judgment, and we don't seem to see judgment of good come up that often. I mean, we sort of take it as, it's like, oh yeah, that's good, that's fine, right? But we seem to be hard on ourselves when the judgment comes up as bad. Don Miguel Ruiz used to say it's the judge and jury in our mind, right? And so when that judge and jury comes up in your mind and says this is bad, the normal reaction to that is, I've got to change this. I've got to get out of it. And you notice even when I said that, I tighten up. You notice that my energy was like, come on, I gotta fix this. I gotta fix this. And that's exactly what Shaltazar is saying, is that energy of I need to fix it. I have to fix it. This is bad, is going to bring more of that in your future. Right.
Yeah, it's. I guess two things come to mind. It's almost like school, right? So you, if you don't, pass third grade, you have to repeat third grade. So I almost feel like the universe is. These are all like little tests. How are you going to react, or how are you going to respond? And if you respond, in the way we're talking about, without judgment and with acceptance and with curiosity, maybe you pass that test and it doesn't come back to you. And if you don't, if you respond, with a negative emotion, then you have to repeat that class or take that test over, because you didn't get it the first time. I don't know. Which is exactly what that message says. You are the creator of your future world, right? Which is exactly what you just said so eloquently, is that we are stuck repeating the same lessons, the same challenges over and over again, because we keep putting out the same energy. Shaltazar, I've started to channel in the new year. New channeling came through yesterday, and they're saying that change is here,
And if we're going to change, we need to learn from our past, that we need to stop doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I mean, I think that was Einstein's definition of insanity. Do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. So if you are if you're reacting the same way you always have, you'll always get it. There's this other saying, if you've always done what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got.
Right.
And we don't want to do that.
Right.
Right. We want to change that. So I think you're onto something big, which is the judgment. And what's coming to mind is one of the messages from Shaltazar saying accepting what is. And we've talked about it a few times on these episodes. The serenity prayer: God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so when you come across an experience, if you don't approach it with judgment, if you approach it with that wisdom to say, can I change this? And if I can, give me the courage to change it. And if I can't, let me accept it. Because accepting is a far better energy than judging and getting mad at it and kicking yourself because you can't change it.
Right. And if you go back to that idea that if it doesn't feel good, it's probably not benefiting you. When you do jump into that, into that judgment, it is a negative place, and it does make you feel bad. It makes you feel, like you said, your voice tightened up, or you tensed up. It makes you feel anxious, or it makes you feel, angry or upset or worried. Those aren't positive emotions that are helping you. So that's kind of your guidance system telling you, okay, I need to change how I'm coming at this because it's not good for me. It's not helping me.
Right. I have blood pressure issues, and it's hereditary in my family. And my family doctor made me a couple of times have this 24-hour blood pressure monitor. Right, and it's kind of interesting that they don't show you the results, but I could certainly tell that things that happen somewhat throughout the day, you could feel your blood pressure rising. And of course, they monitor it at night, and usually your blood pressure is a lot better. If we had a vibration monitor, and I think that's what this message is sort of saying, is that if you could monitor your vibration on a regular basis, you would be able to know whether you are creating positively for the future or you're creating negatively, and the chances are you'll fail grade 3 and have to repeat. And so, I think they're encouraging us to have that sense of awareness, to watch your vibration, to slow things down so that you really are able to monitor your vibration, like I got to have my blood pressure monitored.
Yeah, that's exactly what I took out of the message too. It's a matter of becoming more conscious, more aware of how you are feeling when these things are happening to you, and like you said, and approaching them from an equanimity point of view, you're creating a more peaceful future.
Right. And in other messages, Shaltazar talks about feelings are truth. And what comes to mind is the Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks channeling Abraham, where they used to, they put the hierarchy of emotions, and they said you're never going to get from depression to joy, but you can climb the emotional ladder. And so when that judgment kicks in, when that disappointment kicks in, when something is not going your way, of course you're not going to feel amazing about it. But if you can just consciously try to move up the emotional ladder, to try and get a little bit higher vibrating feeling, then you will not be repeating the same circumstances that keep coming your way when you respond so negatively. Right.
Well, I think that's about all the time we have. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think hopefully it was helpful to people, and I think it's a good path forward for 2021.
Right, right, because we are going to be changing. So if we can be more conscious of our responses, I think we can change our lives in a positive way. So excellent choice of message. I recommend to listeners that they check it out, and thank you for choosing it.
Oh, you're welcome. Look forward to talking to you next time.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. Take care.
Take care. If you have any questions about the Master Teachings of Shaltazar, we invite you to submit them to Jeffrey@jeffreyeisen.com, and we will make your question the topic of a future episode.